Hi, everyone. Welcome to More Than Words. My guest today is Jeff Scott Soto. I'm sure you've heard of him. We'll talk about his solo career, Sons of Apollo, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and a lot more. Stay tuned. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to More Than Words.
Hi, Monica. Nice to be here. Nice to see you. Hope all is well there in Portugal.
Yeah, everything's doing great. How are you in LA?
Yeah, fantastic. It's difficult to know what's going on outside because I've been cooped up in my house. My new house just moved in just over a month
Hmm.
ago, but I've only really been here for a couple weeks because as soon as we moved in, I had to go overseas for some shows, and as soon as I came back, I had to do a bunch of unpacking, unsettling in, and I'm sorry,
Oh.
settling in, not unsettling, and getting my studio up and running to get back to work. I've got so much going on at the same time, but hey, I'm not going to complain. It's a great life, and I've got. I'm just happy to be here.
Sure. So you're used to it. So you're always on the run. You have your solo career. You have participated in a lot of other bands' works and releases, and you have an extensive list of guest appearances as a lead vocal. So pre-pandemic, were you ever home anyway?
That was probably one of the biggest blessings that I ever got was the pandemic truly gave me
Hmm.
the sense of appreciation. I mean, I work all my life. I worked so hard to have the things that I have and to have the things that I've always wanted, but I don't really have the time to sit back and enjoy them. And so, yeah, as much as the pandemic sucked and we had to find ways to get through it and find even just getting through it with our sanity. Um, Music served as a therapy, but it also gave me the opportunity to truly, to be at home and to really enjoy the things that I've been working so hard for so many years to do.
So yeah, sure. And I think that a lot of people has this glamorous and romantic take on what happens with a musician when they're on the road. They think
Yeah.
that everybody is a rock star that gets to stay in five-star hotels, but that's not always the case. So you're always on the road, and not always the conditions are the best. So being at home with your
Yeah.
family must have felt good somehow. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And again, a lot of people had it way worse. I have no I'm not going to complain about anything in terms of I was able to navigate my way and our way through the whole pandemic, and obviously as we're slowly getting back to normal, it's going to take a while. Even from now, it's going to take a while to be completely
Sure.
normal again. At least it gave us a lesson in how to get through something like this and how to how to appreciate the just the realities of life. And from that, I was able to just find a new appreciation for what I do for a living, in fact. And it really actually even served as kind of an awakening. It gave me a reflection
Yeah.
of the fact that maybe I don't want to do as much as I've been doing because you kind of go on, you kind of get into autopilot. You when you start your career, I mean, I started 37 years ago at 18 years old. And as you're going through life, you dream of certain parameters, certain details of your career to start forging ahead. And once you kind of get stuck in that pattern, you don't really know anything else. You don't even really know the feeling of slowing down and stopping.
Yeah.
And that
Mhm.
this forced us to slow down and stop. And so now it's kind of given me a chance to reassess to maybe not really do as much as I was doing on the road. I kind of use the road as an excuse to get out there
Mhm.
and play and visit so many different places. But now I kind of feel like I want to just harness in the ones that mean more to me than just going and playing every single place that somebody books me or throws at me. And now I think it's more of a reflection of let's do things a little more evenly. But as much as I'm doing at home, I'll do on the road, and we'll kind of balance it out a little better. Before it
So
was kind of a little curvy.
yeah. So you took 2020 also to challenge yourself to keep working, and you have taken a lot of proposals and works with other people. So you
Yeah.
took the time to be more creative and to work more. So didn't have that much time to rest.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of what happened. I mean, everybody all of a sudden had this extra free time, so there were collaborations like crazy. There were a lot of musical collaborations, a lot of quarantine videos and covers, and all those kinds of things. Because it really comes down to as musicians, as artists, we have we have that feeling, that need to create, that feeling to do something. And when we were told we can't do
Mhm.
anything, it really forced us to kind of reach out to each other and we kind of utilized each other to find that therapeutic way of keeping busy musically. And it also helped other people. You know, we were putting out all these different songs and videos and collaborations, and it really helped others at the same
Yeah,
token, you know. So,
definitely. Yeah.
you know, yeah, music was
I
the
can
overall language that helped everyone. And it's I was just happy to be part of that.
So, of course, it worked as therapy for you, but also for us on the other side, because we
Yeah.
were also cooped up in our houses, and it was very important to see that artists was keeping to give us music to continue to challenge themselves and to collaborate and to find new ways of sharing their art. So it was really important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? It's again, I like to try to put a positive from a negative. I think the negative of us all being cooped up and locked up, it enabled us to, you know, we could binge watch our favorite shows. We could really concentrate on music and listening to releases and really checking out stuff that was coming out as opposed to
Yeah.
the normal standard. I have my 9 to 5 job. I have my family. I have my distractions in life that don't allow me to really jump into a lot of certain things that might mean a little more to you if you had that time. So we had that time, and I think I think it was helpful in a lot of ways. Again, a positive that came from a
Mhm.
negative.
Absolutely. So you were on the road with Sons of Apollo when the pandemic started to shut down a lot of activities. So how was it for you to have to just let everything go and go back home?
Well, like everyone else, we were unsure what the level of this was going to be, or what you know, what while it was happening. It was happening in real time. We literally landed in Germany, and before the first rehearsal, it was starting to heat up out there. And some, you know, Italy was one of the first places that started heating up on our tour schedule,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
from there, Spain started kicking in. And in the beginning, it was a tough decision for us. We didn't want to pull the plug, but we also didn't want to be stuck in some army hospital somewhere, you know,
Sure.
in Europe, not being
Hmm.
able to get back home if this turned into exactly what it turned into.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult decision. We pushed and pulled. We tried to say, let's just soldier on. Let's get through this. We're gonna lose a lot of money. We're gonna lose, you know, our crew have to go home. We have to change flights. Blah, 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 blah. There were so many
Hmm.
parameters that we had to make our decision based on. And in the end, I'm glad we did it the way we did it, because if we started the tour, if we'd gone further from the 4 dates that we were able to do, it certainly would have been much more expensive, and there would have been more parameters to tackle down. So I'm glad we
Sure.
came home when we did.
Hmm.
And I mean, literally days after I just started, every tour was being pulled, everything was being shut down. By the middle to the end of March, the world was quiet, and it was a crazy time to even think that this would last as long as it did. You know, we were all
Yeah.
looking at, what might be put out for a month or two, and nobody could have ever dreamed that we, you know, almost 2 years later, we're still talking about this.
Yeah, sure. And there was one person that I saw that he was talking about that maybe this wouldn't be as fast as we all thought. There was Rob Flynn from Machine Head. I don't know if you got that in the beginning.
Mhm. Yeah, I
2020,
saw
like,
that.
yeah, it was saying maybe we won't get through this as fast as we think we will. And
Yeah,
I was thinking, more than a year, maybe that's not very realistic. But in the end, he was right.
right.
So here we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
have many people that I heard this from, and I thought, "Oh, come on, dude, don't be
yeah.
ridiculous." Even when
Hmm.
some were saying it might even go to September, I'm like, "You kidding me?
Yeah.
We're gonna knock
Yeah.
this thing out. We'll be back on the road finishing the tour by September." So, who would have thought? Who would have known?
Yeah, and here we are. So your touring cycle with Sons of Apollo for MMXX was interrupted. So what are your plans when you can finally go back on the road? Will you pick up on that or start something new?
At the moment, we've rebooked the tour, all the dates and everything we had. We rebooked it 4 times, and it got to the point where it was redundant to try to find the dates, try to find the availability of everybody to lock in and secure it, and then to keep it moving forward. So we decided, the only dates that we are moving forward with right now, currently, are the 4 South American dates, and we're supposed to go out in January. You know, knock on wood, nothing changes that
Yeah,
again. We've decided not to rebook the European tour right now because again, everybody and their brothers rebooking for 2022, and the windows of opportunity are
yeah,
closing. And we're trying to find the right way and the right timing to do this. As you know, everybody in this band, as we're talking about Sons of Apollo, comes from a different walk of life, career wise, and
Sure.
all these bands are also waiting to get back out there. You know, Derek, Bumblefoot, Mike, and Billy, they have their own respective bands. I mean, Billy and Mike are in one, you know, another band as well, the Winery
Mhm.
Dogs.
Yeah.
So we have to look at everybody's schedules. We have to look at what works timing wise for everyone, and then after that, we have to look at the availability. And at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any openings if 2022 is indeed the actual comeback year for everyone.
So everybody's eager to go back, the bands and the fans, of course. But we can see that a lot of bands that moved to schedule dates to this year are
Yeah,
starting to have to cancel, so or
yeah,
postpone, which is I think is even more dramatic to be on the road again and have to
yeah.
postpone or cancel shows. So they're doing
Another
it
reason
at a lot.
why,
Yeah.
yeah, going from that experience to the fact that we were already mid tour or the beginning of a tour and we
Hmm.
had to pull it, we don't want that to happen again. So it's probably better to kind of wait and watch and see and just
Sure.
kind of feel it out before we actually go forward. And at this point, the MMXX album is going to be 2 years old in exactly four
Mhm.
months.
Yeah.
So that also is another perimeter that we have to look at. It's a shame that we didn't get to go out and promote that album. It's a great record, and we were having
It
such a
is.
blast playing all the new songs. But you know, it's not a new album anymore for all intents and purposes. And I think the focus should be on another album before we actually do another world tour again.
Sure. Of course, it must be important for you to go back to that and to think what comes next. So,
Yeah,
going back a little bit on Sons of Apollo history, you're being there. So, Mike Portnoy scouted you, right, when you were touring with Binary Dogs a
yeah,
long time ago, and then you finally got the call. I know that it was in your birthday, so that must have been quite a birthday when you got the call from Mike Portnoy inviting
yeah.
you. So, how is it for you to be a part of a prog project with so many other musicians that you have known from the road and from your work for all these years? Has it been very fulfilling for you? Do you feel like it's the right place to be?
It's probably one of the best places in my life, in my career, especially at this point in my
Mm,
life and career, because as I keep bringing up, I've been working so hard since 1984 when I started at 18 years old with Yngwie Malmsteen. And the fact that I still am able to do what I've loved doing, that what I've always dreamed of doing for so many years and decades, and to end up where I am now. I mean, I was in Journey for a year. There were other bands and other bands like that and classic famous bands that I was linked to or possibly could be linked to. And that would have been a great thing to do too. But when you're covering someone else's legacy is not as important for an artist as doing your own legacy. So for me,
mhm,
I'm with such an important piece of my career and my legacy, if I want to call it that.
sure.
Um, at this point in my life and that I can actually continue to extend on it with my own material, with the material that we're doing together as a band, as opposed to following somebody else's course. You know, of course, who wouldn't want to sing for Queen or Van Halen
Mhm.
or Journey? You know, all the favorite bands in my life. But in the end, you know, it would
You've
be
done
like
a
being,
bit of that, right?
yeah. And I don't want to be a tribute singer or a cover singer for someone else's legacy when I still have the stamina and the creativity and the youth to continue creating and carving my own. So that's why Sons of Apollo is one of the most important bands to me at this point in time, to be
Mhm.
with my friends, people I've known for so many decades in the business, but also that have their own careers that they're bringing into this. What we're doing together is very important. It's something I can't really put into words, and I really hope that we're going to be around for a long time to come.
I hope so too. And I imagine that you have a lot of fun when you're together working. I saw that Voices of Apollo video you posted. That was really funny. Where did the idea
Yeah.
come from?
Most of it, it's, I mean, for as far as the stuff that we were doing during the pandemic,
Hmm.
that they were just extensions of stuff that we were doing on the bus or backstage after gigs or in the dressing room. It's such a musical band, of course. I mean, everybody's at the top of their game of what they do musically, and
Hmm.
but having also the luxury of singers, you know, having somebody like Mike or Bumblefoot who are actually really good singers and solid background singers when we do harmonies together, and
Yeah,
even Billy
that
for
the
that matter.
harmony was amazing in that song. Yeah, you were really
Yeah.
great together. Yeah.
So sometimes even at like the after shows when we were meeting up with guests and somebody starts singing a harmony and I'm on the other side of the room, I start joining in, and next thing you know, it turns into kind of like a sing along, and we give a
Yeah.
little treat for our guests backstage, and that's kind of where the whole Voices of Apollo thing came from. When everybody was doing all these collaborations and these videos and stuff together, I said, guys, we should do something like we do backstage at our Sons of Apollo shows,
Mhm.
and that's where that came from. It's just naturally fun to do, and again, it's these guys are just a thrill a minute to be a part of.
Sure, that must be really fun. So we hope you have more of those coming up for us to see how things are going with you. So you're about to release a new album, the Duets Collection, Volume One, and of course you are promoting this release. And I know that you were trying to recreate some of your other songs that you already recorded, and now with friends. So how was it for you to choose the 11 tracks and to choose who you were singing with?
Well, I'll try to give you the short version of the answer to
Yeah.
that. The idea basically started with I was talking with Frontiers Records, my longtime label collaborators, about doing stuff outside of my normal releases. You know, as we were trying to navigate our way through the whole pandemic and trying to find ways to stay creative and just to keep the flow going, so the people didn't forget about us. I had
Sure.
a lot of releases already in between. I had a JSS album, had the Wet album, and then other things in between. I asked him, you know,
Mhm.
what kind of other thing. I don't know if we really want to do another collaboration album, like a super group thing, because that just gets confusing. I've got Wet. To me, that's a great side project to be
Yeah.
a part of. And now with Sons of Apollo, I don't want to keep stacking on other things that I have to follow up with. The Ellefson Soto thing came about that way, and that was also something because we're also so busy. You know, we would do it when we can do it, but that's I didn't really want to do another super group, another collaboration album. So they said, "What about a covers album?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done so many covers in my life and tribute songs and on tribute albums.
Mhm.
There's enough of that already out there." And I said, "Well, what about a tribute to myself?" Because I remember singing background. I remember singing lead to an album a few years ago for Michael Shanker, and it was a Michael
Yeah.
Shanker tribute album for all of the bands and UFO and MSG and all the things he's been a part of. But he played on all the songs, so he redid all the guitars of the songs that everybody knows Michael Shanker of. I thought that's an interesting idea. If I do a JSS covers legacy album and I do stuff throughout my career, redo stuff, but instead, and that's where I came up with the idea of doing it as duets instead of doing it with different musicians and this famous person on guitar and blah blah blah. Why don't we focus on, instead of me singing everything, I do it with other singers. If I just did it with the other singers and I'm not on it, I think that might be a little harder to sell. But by doing it with my friends, doing it with people I love and respect, and the other thing I really wanted to focus on was that we were taking mostly, if not all, artists that are on Frontiers, because I'm helping promote them, they're helping promote me, and it's kind of win-win for the label. So they love the idea. They said, "Run with it." They came up with the bulk of the songs, song suggestions, and I came up with the rest of them. And then from there, looking at the titles, I started listing all my friends, all my favorite singers that are on Frontiers that I thought that might do this and might want to do this, and I started linking those names to particular songs, kind of like a casting director does
Mhm. Yeah.
when they're making a movie. They say Tom Cruise is the perfect fit for this part, and so they'll have him
Yeah.
read for it to see if it's right. And that's exactly what I did, but without having to hear anybody's voices. I knew Eric Martinson
You
would be
knew all
great
of
on
them,
Live.
of course.
I
Yeah.
knew Nathan James. I knew all the voices that I cast in certain songs would fit perfectly. And then began the chore of, "Hey guys, I got this idea. What do you think?" And I mean, everybody came to the table with with enthusiasm, and they were excited to do this. And I'm so thrilled with the outcome of this record.
Yeah, sure. And you work closely with a lot of them. Dino Chelisic is one of the singles of this new release. He was my guest 2 episodes ago, so we talked a lot about
Okay.
TSO and all that. Yeah, and I found it really interesting that you were doing this together because the song is really great. So congratulations.
And I love thank you. I loved. that I took the oldest song of my career, my legacy, and I took the youngest singer that's on this
Yeah.
record. You know, it
Mhm.
was kind of a dichotomy of taking the old with the young, and the, you know, as far as Dino's voice is concerned, he's got such a classic rock voice. His voice comes
It
from
does.
that
Yeah.
that old school David Coverdale, Ronnie James Dio, that really powerful classic rock era. So that song represented that just the same. And even when I was singing it, even when I was 19 years old in the studio singing that
Mhm.
song, my influences and the people that I had in my mind that I wanted to reflect on the voice and the genre were Ronnie James Dio and Bruce Dickinson. I was trying in my head, I was trying to impersonate them when I
Yeah.
was singing that song. And it's, you know, again, all these parameters were all part of who and how I was casting the voices for this record. I'll throw this in before we move on to the next point.
Yeah.
I kind of got, it wasn't too much hate, but I got berated a little bit. How come there's no female singers?
Yeah.
And first of all, I don't have too many female friends that are on Frontiers. There are a lot of singers and a lot of bands with female fronted singers, but I'm not friends with them. So the majority of this album was based on
Okay.
my friends, and of course, I want to extend on that later. And this is one of the reasons why I call it Volume One. If people like this and we want to turn this into a regular thing, I have a plethora of songs. I have a plethora of things in my career, in my life, that would work perfectly for future albums, future versions of this. And that's why I want to expand on maybe, you know, bringing some of the female side. And even if they're not directly with Frontiers, I would dream of, you know, singing with Lizzie
Mm.
Hale or Amy Lee or any one of the really strong female singers that are out there today and yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that this is volume one, so we assume there'll be more, and you'll have the opportunity to work with other people.
Well, that was my reverse psychology. If I tell everybody this is volume one, they're going to assume there's already a volume two and volume three planned. But obviously,
Sure, of
that
course.
won't happen until or unless they actually like this record and show that there's excitement for it.
And of course, you have to have time to do that as
Yeah,
well.
the time is never a problem, and this is one of the. It
Mm,
might come up during the course of the interview. People say, "How do you find time to do everything you're
mhm.
doing?" Because this is my full time job. This is I live, sleep, drink, eat, you know, music. This is
Music, yeah.
what I signed up for. So I don't look at this as, okay, well, I'm going to work from 8 to 5 and then I'm going to take the weekends off, and next month I'm going to take the whole month off vacation. No, this is my life. This is every
Mhm.
breathing day I have, I'm doing something that has to do with music. It's not a job for me. This is a pleasure. This is a luxury. I'm humbled the fact that I can continue to do this after almost 4 decades. So I'm not going to look back on it and go, I'm going to take some time off. There's no time off. It's like breathing. It's like eating. I have to be creative. I have to show that outlet. So I love it.
Yeah, of course. And you're lucky enough not to be forced to have a different day job
Yeah.
outside the music business. So of course, there's that saying that if you love what you do, you're never working.
Yeah.
So that's what's happened to you, right?
It's kind of. It does
Yeah.
turn into work. It does turn, especially when we were just you know, saying hello before the interview started.
Hmm.
It's one of the busiest times of my life, and I thought one of the busiest times of my life was last year or the year before. And it continues to, the bar keeps raising of how
Yeah.
busy. I really don't know how I'm doing everything, but I guess it's kind of like Prince. When Prince passed away, he had vaults of
Oh, yeah.
unreleased songs. He had so many B-sides, so many things that people never heard of. And I think that's the beauty of what I'm doing now is I'm going to leave behind a legacy of music that's going to precede me. It's going to continue to be able to be released and heard way after I'm long gone.
So you're planning on leaving a lot of stuff for your kids to release afterwards?
Well, it's not even that. It's more that I'm working with so many people and doing so many other
Sure.
things that there's always going to be something out there for people to listen to, and
Hmm.
not necessarily my own releases are like directly connected to me. And again, that's, I don't see anything wrong with that, because this is why we go into this in the first place. We want to make music. We want to.
Of
I
course.
love the challenge of collaborating. I love the challenge of
Hmm.
expressing in different ways that aren't normally my everyday ways, and that's what keeps me growing as an artist.
Sure. So you did a making of for the duets, or what are you planning to do with that? Is it like a DVD or just for social media?
Yeah, it's only going to be for social media promotion, you know,
Okay.
YouTubes and stuff like that. And we were waiting to finish the latest video, the latest single that's coming out on Friday, so we
Hmm.
can actually wrap up the making of, because they wanted to use some of the footage. You know, they wanted to add it, they wanted to add that portion in as well. So the fact that that's coming out on Friday, I believe we should be getting the making of in the next few days as well. So I don't know the exact release dates,
Hmm.
but I would
Okay.
imagine the making of will probably come out the same time as the actual album.
Sure. So the fans will stay tuned and look for that in your social
Yeah,
media. Yeah. So being around in the music business for so long, more than 35 years now, you must look at the business and the hard rock and metal industry in a very close way, different from us that we are on the outside. So for me, for instance, as a concert goer and watching a lot of bands in the last 20 years, I noticed that many bands are every day more working in studio and giving that a lot of thought and a lot of time and doing more intricate and more complex and layered works and releases then when they come to bring in to play live, maybe they are not able to present it in the same way. Do you feel that as well
right.
as a musician and as a person that loves music?
Oh God, yes, it's very frustrating. There's a lot of stuff I'd love to do live that I don't
Hmm.
do because either people don't know it, they haven't heard it, or it wasn't received in a big way. So the last thing an artist wants to do is do filler stuff during a show, during a concert. When I build my set list, I always build them to kind of have the peaks and valleys of of my past and my legacy. But I also
Hmm.
need to focus on the fact that if you give them too many things that they don't know, you're gonna half your audience is gonna be in the bathroom or getting another beer. Then you're gonna be able to keep them watching the show. So
Yeah.
my ideal situation has always been to stack the actual set list with things that I know I'm gonna grab them and I'm gonna keep them. And so yeah, it's a learning curve in the beginning when you're first touring,
Hmm.
learning, understanding certain regions, certain targeted areas where people know certain things. And because I have such a plethora of things to choose from, it's not always the same in every territory. I can switch it up in parts of South America compared to parts of Europe and parts of the US. I
Hmm.
have to switch it up because some things are not as known in different areas. And that's probably the best part about having as much material as I do to choose from. But on the other
Sure.
hand, it is frustrating because that's that one song that gets a great response in Argentina and Brazil. It's falling flat in Pittsburgh or New York City. So I'm always having to move and alternate and you know, shift things around to make things that I know that are going to work for particular audiences.
So, as a singer, being around for so long, like I said, do you notice the changes from singing certain registers when you're young and now with you getting older? It gets
Oh
harder for
God,
you? Yeah.
that was probably the hardest thing about making the Duets album. Is most of the songs were done when I was young, dumb, and full of something that rhymes with dumb. It's my range was stupid. I could sing anything. I could do. I basically I was in the studio doing all those Talisman records and knocking out an entire vocal in 20 minutes. Now it takes about an hour or 2 hours because, especially having to redo some of that earlier stuff, it's so high for me. And you know, when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s, it was no problem. But now
Hmm.
I'm in my mid 50s, and as I'm getting older, the voice wants to shift, and even my speaking voice is a lot lower. And
Yeah.
from that, obviously, my singing voice has dropped. I even listen to interviews that I've done from 20 years ago, and I'm speaking like this, and you can hear that my voice is a lot higher. So it naturally has shifted and come down. But I also find ways to navigate that. Like Sons of Apollo, I'm absolutely focused on not doing things in the studio that I can't do live. And that's what I'm focusing now, where my parameters, where my voice lies now. I
Hmm.
do those things based on knowing I can do them live. There's some things I can't do live that it takes a lot of studio work to get it out and get it done. And those things you probably won't hear live is one of the reasons why the band Wet never tours, because if I have to sing an entire show for a month with that band, I literally would come home with no voice. So it's great to be able to continue the sound of what we created for Wet, which features a lot of that high range singing. But
Hmm.
I can't pull that off in an entire set night after night after night anymore. I just can't.
So yeah, sure, you have to adapt, and you see that with other bands like Metallica or Iron Maiden. People, of course, getting older, they keep touring, and their voices change. So you have to adjust the set list probably, and try to see what you do with your new material, so your voice can
Sure.
adjust to that. Yeah.
And you
So.
find you find new ways to navigate the singing as well. You find new
Hmm.
ways. There are vocal teachers out there that that can teach you a technique that you can still sing the high register, but it's going to sound different. I notice even like Bruce Dickinson's voice, he's not
Yeah,
singing with the same level of power that he did when he was younger,
of
but
course.
he's still able to hit the high notes, but it sounds different because
Hmm.
he's got a teacher that's taught him a way to be able to bring out those notes, and it's probably gonna be lighter. It's gonna be not as strenuous on the throat, but he'll still be able to hit those notes. But it sounds different than the way he sounded when he sang those notes 25, 30 years ago.
Sure, it's just a natural course now of life
Yeah,
and of growing, of course. About Wet, you were talking about them. So you're
yeah.
working with a lot younger musicians. They were your fans in your other projects. So how's it been to work with them?
That's always the best thing. I mean, when I look at all the work that I've done and how long I've been doing this, I forget that there are a lot of, especially the younger generation that I'm working with or becoming friends with. I forget that they were very influenced by everything that I was doing back in those days, and they looked up to me as one of their kind of inspirations or influences. And I
Hmm.
forget that kind of stuff, especially when I got some of the younger guys on this Duets album. I mean, they were beyond thrilled. They were just astonished that I was reaching out to them. I go, "Why? You're a great singer. You're a great talent. Your band is killing." You know, the
Hmm.
singer from Electric Mob. You know, it's all these kind of people that grew up listening to and singing along to my voice are
Hmm.
now singing alongside me. So for them, it's a thrill. For me, it's the same thrill because I really enjoy what they do. I love Dino's voice. I love Renan's voice, but it's I look at them as my peers. I don't look at them as, oh, you're just a new young, fresh, snot-nosed kid that's coming out there trying to be a rock star. I
Yeah.
look at them as, my God, these guys are killing it. They're great, and I love being alongside with them, and to call them my friend is an honor. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I look at the people that I know and work with the same way they probably look at me. And so that way it kind of evens out the playing field. There's no kind of, I'm the older guy,
Hmm.
I'm the one you look up to, and vice versa. They don't have to look at me like, oh my God, if Jeff is singing, I have to do whatever he says. You know, everything is on the same level of as if they were along for the ride with me the whole time.
Hmm. I think it's great that you do that because maybe a lot of other artists from the old school era don't have that opening to
Oh
collaborate
no,
with younger musicians and to absorb their influences. Yeah.
yeah, no, I've met many of them that would never give the kind of uh, I'm trying to look for the right word, the
Yeah.
kind of acceptance that I give to the ones that I'm working with that I'm good friends with, because again they look at it as, I'm here, you're here, and we'll always have that gap between us, and I always immediately close in on that to make everybody feel comfortable and confident.
Sure, that's really nice. So your latest release with them was this year, back in January, right?
Yeah.
Retransmission.
Mhm.
And you have assumed yourself as a studio band, not a live band. So fans won't expect many tours or maybe just a show once in a while, right?
Right, and we'll do them when we can, how we can, where we
Hmm.
can, but for the most part, it always comes back to what we were talking about, Sons of Apollo. These guys are all in different bands. They're all
Sure.
busy with their own different walks of life, as I am. So trying to find something that works for us timing wise and financially and location, all those things are always parameters that are stumbling blocks that we have to get through. But if it's meant to be, we find a way to do it.
Sure. And I've noticed during your career that ever since working with Ingvi when you were 18, like you said, you have worked with a lot of Swedish musicians. Was that just a coincidence or is there a reason for that?
It's kind of a coincidence, and the funny thing is how it's fallen into, like, every decade I end up with a new version or a new format of Swedish musicians, starting with Ingve, and 10 years later was Talisman, and then 10 years later was with Wet. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like every decade I'm associated with a new Swedish act, because Talisman kind of fizzled out. What kind of replaced that, and I'm not necessarily looking for who's going to be the next Swedish sensation I'm going to be linked in with. So
Yeah.
I'm holding on to and harnessing the thing I'm doing with Wet for now. And again, I'm going with the flow, and I'm just lucky that people still want to hear me after all these years.
They have very good music. We
Yeah.
can say that. So I think it's only natural that it happens. Even when we started with the Swedish musician with Ingvi, what
I
do
look at
you?
I look at the
Yeah.
Swedish musicians and the crafting that they do with music. I look at the Swedes the same way as I look at the Germans with automobiles. The Germans are just their engineering and their automobiles are second to none. You know, they know what they're doing to a degree that nobody can touch them. And that's kind of how I feel about the Swedish music scene. That, you know, between pop music with the Max Martins and all that side we're doing for music,
Mm-hmm.
and then adding what I was doing with on the hard rock and metal side. It's always a certain level of quality that's just there.
Yeah, they have a lot of metal bands, a very strong metal scene there, in pretty much all Scandinavian
Yeah.
countries, to say that. Yeah. So, and they have really good crowds as well. They really
Oh
love
yeah.
their metal.
Mhm.
Okay, so going back a little bit, and I have to talk about this. You're being in Trans-Siberian Orchestra for so long. What are your best memories with them? Because you were a part of this unique show back in 2015 in Wacken with one of my favorite bands, Sabotage, and that was so special. That must be in your memory forever. So, how was it for you to be there?
One of the things that I'll always cherish about playing Bakken with TSO is I remember when Paul O'Neill, the founder, the
Hmm.
main person behind TSO that started this whole thing running, when he pulled me to the side, he said, "Jeff, we're actually creating history here. When you think of when the Beatles were on the rooftop doing their last concert before they broke up, um, years later, the next band that did that was U2 for their video. I forgot which song they did. They shot a video where they were doing
I
the
don't
kind
know.
of
Yeah.
emulating the concert on the roof thing. But you always look at the Beatles that did it first. Uh,
Mhm.
there aren't too many firsts left in much of what we're doing in music, in concerts, etc. No band has ever, in the creation of these metal festivals, done a show using both stages simultaneously. Nobody's ever done it. They
Yeah,
can't do it.
definitely.
And they even told us it's going to be impossible to do it because the amount of power that you need just to power up one of the stages, there's
Yeah.
not enough power to run both stages simultaneously between the lights, between the amplifiers and all that. And this is another reason why it's never been done. So when Paul O'Neill told me the only way we can pull this off is he's bringing in his own, I forgot the stupid amount of money that he spent to bring his own additional power out of
Wow.
his own pocket, that we were able to power up two stages. He said, if anybody ever does this again, or anybody's crazy enough to try to do this again, it's always gonna go back to TSO did it first. And I even
Yeah.
get goosebumps thinking about it now. That was one of the things that made it so exciting. I've done many a music festival through my life and career, but never in my life have I done one where we've taken two main stages and two complete bands with orchestra to be locked up
Yep.
and synced up to be performing live in front of 75,000 people. I don't think it's possible that it can be done again unless somebody asks us our secret formula of how we were able to lock up two stages with zero latency, that we can actually, everybody knows what the other
Yeah.
ones are doing without being able to see them, without being able to watch their movements and conducting. It really was a lot of work pulling it off, and I can't believe we did it. And it's one of those moments in my life that I'll always cherish.
Yeah, I was at home in my couch watching that live online at Vacan's
Right.
website, and that was like amazing just to see the fact that you had two stages at the same time, as you were saying, and two bands at the same time facing the crowd,
Yeah.
not facing each other,
Right.
facing the
Right.
crowd. That was amazing. I was thinking, can they pull this off? And you did.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, like
There, there
one in
were
a
very
lifetime.
there
Yeah.
were many oh shit moments during the show. There was one that I'll never forget it. That there was somebody came in the wrong spot and basically threw everyone off. So we had to basically fade off of that and start the
Oh,
next one instead of it sound like a train wreck. And this is I give absolute kudos and respect to my dear friend, musical director Al Petrelli, because he was
yeah.
basically the one in charge in his ears, making sure everybody's locked, everybody's in sync. And if he hears a problem, that guy is grace under pressure. He knows exactly what to do and how to do it. And I watched him navigate 2 full stages of musicians to kind of to fade out of the song, and then we started the next one. I was like, oh my God, how did we just do that? It was amazing.
Yeah, because TSO already has big protections, but that was really
Yeah.
a special event, and I don't think it's as often happened not before or ever since. So just in the history books, yeah.
Well, Paul O'Neill was a dreamer. People thought he was crazy when he came up with this concept, of starting up Trans-Siberian Orchestra out of the ashes of
Hmm.
Sabotage. And
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why the Sabotage members to this day are still a big part of it. This is basically the extension of where they came from, but it was also the beginning of Paul O'Neill's extension of his creativity. And I remember even meeting Al Petrelli, and it was like 2001 or something like that at a wedding. And this is when TSO would just they were in full swing. They just started the 2 production bands, the West Coast and East Coast band, to do simultaneous touring. And when he was telling me about this, I thought, this sounds weird. It sounds, who's going to want to go to this? But hey, good luck. I guess it's working for you. And who
Yeah.
knew 6 years later that I would be getting the call to join join the ranks.
Yeah, and even that concept of having two different teams playing at the same time in different coasts, that's really something as well. Yeah.
It truly is thinking outside the box. I have
Yeah.
such an amazing love and respect for Paul O'Neill for taking the impossible and making it possible. And that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from him is if you can dream it, you can actually live it. And he's living proof of that. And, unfortunately we lost him a few years ago, but what he gave to all of us in terms of his
Yeah.
brains, his integrity, his love, his passion, all of that, we all live through his eyes to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, changing gears a bit now, you were one of the artists that were lucky enough to get back on the road this year. So, you've been in Europe, you've been in South America. How was it for you to get connected with the crowd again? People were so eager to get back to live shows. It must have been special.
It was great, but it was scary, and there was a
Mhm.
backlash. A lot of people they weren't too happy that I was getting back out there, but I also
Really?
realized
Why
there
was that?
well, because they felt, especially when Brazil, for instance, I was going
Mm,
there when it was still such a hotbed. But luckily, by the time I did arrive there, the vaccine rollout had started in terms of, people feeling safer by getting the vaccinations and by continuing to follow with the protocol, the mask mandates, the
mhm.
all the things that everybody has to deal with around the world. And there's a way to do things if everybody cooperates, and that's the bottom line.
Sure.
I know there's a lot of people that are against certain levels. They feel like their freedoms are being stripped. But you know what? Guess what? It is what it is. If you want to go see something, if you want to live or try to live normally, you're going to have to abide by rules. You know what? If there's a law that says you have to wear a seatbelt when you get in a car, if you have to wear a seatbelt before a plane takes off or
Sure.
before a plane lands, you can say, "Hey, that my freedom. I want to not sit here with a seatbelt." That doesn't make sense. It's a law. It's a mandate. You have to follow it. Otherwise, don't fly or don't drive. If you can't
Mhm.
ride a motorcycle without a helmet, it's a law that you have to wear a helmet. You decide I'm not going to wear a helmet, you're going to get a ticket because it's the law. You follow the rules. The rules and the laws are based on experiences. Everything comes from an experience that happened, and it has to be mandated in order for us to not to have to go through that again. Everything from 9/11, you learn so many different things through life, and you try to follow a course that makes sense for everybody to live a happy and safe life. And that's the bottom line, without getting politically charged or
Mhm.
I'm not attacking anybody's beliefs, but the bottom line is follow the science in terms of what they think is going to be the best for all of us so we can live a normal, happy life. If you don't want to do it, it just makes things take that much longer to get back to normal. And we're all in this push, pull, tug of war of
Yeah.
saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And it just turns into a big cluster. So answering your question, yeah, it was a bit scary in
Mhm.
terms of I don't necessarily worry about me getting COVID. I worry about giving it to someone else that might not
Sure.
fare too
Mhm.
well from it. And that was obviously, I have my family, I have people that I'm around on a daily basis to have to worry about. And of course, I do worry about myself as well. But I also have to think about my well-being, my
Mhm.
as we were talking about, there's a lot of people suffering the ramifications of being cooped up psychologically, and I have to be part of the outlet that says we're going to be normal again, and that's why I went for it.
Sure. So you were talking about the backlash for doing that. Do you pay attention to what people say about what you
Absolutely.
think or what you do online? Do you get to worry about all that, or you just ignore it?
I I soak it in. I read and I at
Hmm.
least know where people's heads are without, because I don't want to go against the grain. I don't want people to look at me as going against the grain or trying to be rebellious towards what's right and what's wrong. So of course I'll listen. I'll read and I'll even reply and I'll at least explain my intentions
Hmm.
so people don't think I'm just living this reckless, I don't care, it's all about me kind of decision lifestyle. And so yeah, of course I follow I follow what my fans or people my followers say because they're my followers for a reason. I don't want to lose them, so I have to make
Sure.
sure
Hmm.
to some degree I have to cater to them because I once you get them in, now the hard part is keeping them with you. And it's so easy to lose them or to for them to go away. And it's another reason why I even stay away from the political side of things because I realize that
Hmm.
could be detrimental to someone's career. Nobody cares about what you feel and what you believe. The only ones that care what you feel and believe are the ones that believe the same thing you do. The ones that don't, they're going to say, I don't believe this. I can't believe you follow this idea and I can't be your fan anymore. I don't need that. I'd rather everybody
Sure.
coexist and love the music and forget about all this political and religious and all this other garbage that divides everybody. My music is supposed to keep us together, and that's what music is, to bond and keep us all together,
Sure.
not to
Yeah.
divide us.
Yeah, music is the greater good above everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know your fans are used to you having this candid approach to stuff and being very open. So I believe they wouldn't take that to so seriously. So of course, that if you say what you think, people will like and appreciate your candor, right?
Yeah, you'll be surprised. There's a lot of people that, I mean, especially some of the friends, I give
Mm,
them, I give them a lot of kudos for speaking and voicing their opinion because obviously a lot of people just walked away from them. I personally don't want that. I don't want to be in
mhm.
between somebody's thoughts and views, and I really don't care. It comes down to I really don't care. As long as you're good to others and you're not hurting others, that's all I care about. Respect everyone and respect everyone's decisions. But I'm not going
Sure.
to get in between your business and what you believe and what you think is right.
Hmm. So I know you've been in my country, Portugal, a few times. Do you have
Yeah.
any memories from that shows here in Portugal with your projects?
Um, the first time I was there it was great because it was with an all Brazilian band called
Hmm.
Tempest, and it was a tour where I helped them book a European tour because I was trying to get them noticed outside of their home country in Brazil. And we booked the tour. We presented it as Tempest is doing a tour, and I'm actually their guest singer. So they would do their set, and then I would come at the end of the set and do like
Hmm.
6 or 7 songs with them. And that was kind of my way of presenting this great band. And from that's one of the reasons why we got the offer to play in Lisboa.
Yeah.
And having obviously having Brazilian guys there to be able to speak the language, speak
Yeah.
Portuguese, and it felt so much easier than if I'd gone there for the first time with one of my American bands or my European concoctions of the things that I've done in my life. It was
Hmm.
so much easier and so much more pleasurable being there with a band of guys that speak the language. So it just kind
Sure.
of set right in. And so the next times that I was there was the same thing. It almost felt like a familiarity, almost like another version of what we do in South America, or I'm sorry, in Brazil, South America,
Yeah.
the rest of it's Spanish, and Brazil Portuguese. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's and obviously having two Portuguese guys, I'm sorry, two Brazilians in the band speaking Portuguese, I'm learning a lot more. I'm learning how to discern certain words that sound or derive from Latin and Spanish, and I
Sure.
can actually navigate the language a little better. And I understand what they're talking about most of the time now because I've been involved with Brazilians for so many years.
Yeah. So you've learned a few things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just wrapping up the conversation now, Jeff. Thank you for your time. Would you like to invite all the people that are watching More Than Words right now to listen to your duets collection?
I am inviting you guys to check out something unique, something so dear to me, something it became an important part of my life musically, to be able to reinvent and to revisit things that I haven't done or heard or even sung in so many years. And that's what the duets thing is. It's kind of a celebration of my career that I get to celebrate with some of my favorite singers and artists. And I think it's going to be a great album. I hope it's received by all of you out there, because I want to do volume 2, 3, and 13. I just want to keep doing it's great. It's a great little thing to do in between all the new original music, is to be able to revisit the past and do all those songs again with some of my favorite people. So please listen to the Duets Collection. Please love it, and please scream and beg for volume 2 and 3 and more, so I can continue doing these.
Hopefully we will have more other volumes for us to listen to.
I hope
So
so.
and I remember now that you'll be on the road with TSO in November,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Mhm.
So do you have any idea where you'll be at that time?
All my dates are yeah, I'm on the West Coast production, so all my dates will be
Hmm.
on all my social medias. You know,
Sure.
it's easy to find. You either Google it or
Hmm.
you open the social media apps and put my name. If it doesn't have a blue badge next to it, it's not me.
Of course.
Definitely follow the ones with the blue badges, and from that you can get all my information, all my dates, all the
Hmm.
release information. It's even more updated than my own website. So better to go to my social medias than to the jeffscottsoto.com website.
Sure. So we're reminding everyone to listen to your Duets Collection Volume 1, and also to stay tuned to all the dates of your shows with TSO and other projects that you collaborate with. So, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you here on More Than Words.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.